Ivan? Can you
Okay.
show this thing?
I want to talk about the landfill expansion design. Basically, I got a couple sheets here. I only made a few of these, just you can kind of share so you get an idea. What I'm showing you there basically is cross sections again of the landfill. The abutment aspect that we've been talking about for quite a long time is basically this space in between these old landfill cells. You're looking at a cross section of the landfill from north to south, and basically your new development sits considerably lower than what these old landfill cells sit. Okay? And if you look at there's three sections through there, so it gives you an idea. The second section there gives you more of an idea of the full width of the two, your cell 7 and your cell 8 are those two new cells being developed alongside of the old landfill. Okay? And basically, just to explain, originally in this design, the conceptual design was the fact that we were going to have a 2-to-1 slope there that was just going to be natural earth, and we were going to put a geonet collection, a netting material and stuff that would have laid right on the surface, and the garbage was going to be piled up against that. That was the original conceptual design that basically the DNR accepted. Then they turned around with their revised rules and said, no, you can't do that. So then we had the alternative liner. That slope just basically got pivoted out on the bottom. You lost some space because we had to flatten that from a 2-to-1 slope to a 3-to-1 slope. We flattened that 3-to-1 slope, and then we put a 4-foot clay liner. So that was cut back, and then basically a 4-foot of clay put on there. That's what cells 7A and 7B were constructed as. Okay, now under this design for this cell, they're not accepting the alternative liners. So you still got a 3-to-1 slope there, but you'll be putting a membrane liner up that slope. And this section here, all you'll be doing is the membrane liner all on the bottom will be welded and continue right up the slope, and that'll be anchored at the top of that slope. So this whole side slope now will have that membrane liner on it. In the future, as you can see here, flip back to that first sheet again. This, what we call the intermediate level, basically that is now, that intermediate level is being run all the way up to that road, that old road access before the vertical expansion took off. Originally we were going to try to keep it at a lower elevation, but when we had to start working that slope, the common place or the logical place to daylight was right there at that access road along the top of the old landfill before they started going up with the vertical expansion. So we are basically, this liner is going all the way up to there, and in the future, let's see, one of these sections has a better bench on it. Go to the third sheet. This bench up here, right in here, is basically where we're now going to have membrane liner coming all the way up to the top of this and anchored up here at this bench.
That's the red.
The red line, in a sense, will come all the way to that top now. Okay, that in the future you will have to continue for this expansion and fill in this area up here, you will put the membrane liner up this slope and up this face. You'll have to bring membrane liner all the way up to the top. Because
they will cover the other cells, correct?
That's because, yes, because you will be putting garbage over top of these old existing cells down below.
Right here.
Mm-hmm. And those are not get a approved liner in the bottom of those, so because that filling is over top of that area, that's why they're required. Now originally, all we had planned to do was be able to put basically a 4-foot clay liner up through there. Then we said, well, why don't you just allow us to use a 2-foot and put a geonet on there, which is the sandwich bentonite clay and stuff. Well, they won't even accept that as modeling because cell 7A and 7B only have a 4-foot clay liner on it. So basically you can't do alternative liners. Okay. So I'm just, refreshing the board as to what's going on there. If you look at this sheet here, 7A, 7B are the original cells that were developed. You're developing cell 7C, which is just the next 250 feet back to the west of A and B. So you're going from east to west. Your down gradient direction is going from west down to the east. And you're doing this next 250 foot, and then you have 2 more cells in the future to develop back there behind that one. So you got D and E yet that would be developed. And they're both approximately 250 feet. Okay? So, in doing this cell, you will have probably in the neighborhood of, well, 7A and 7B was 350 feet. You've been filling in there since September of 2007. So you've been in there 3+ years now. You should get 4 years out of that. Assuming that your filling rate doesn't change a whole lot, you'll probably be looking at about 3-year life in this cell. Okay? Now, on this side slope, one of the issues that I want to get a confirmation from the board, again, on that abutment side slope, we're going to have a membrane liner all the way up that slope. What we're proposing is you put the membrane liner completely up the slope, because otherwise you'd have to call that liner contractor back, basically come in and do piece by piece. You're only going to be able to cover the bottom portion of that slope, in the first year. Well, that means the rest of your slope is sitting there basically exposed. DNR doesn't allow you to leave that exposed over the winter months. Okay? So we went around with them about, can we put the sand on and then cover it with soil? Well, they didn't like that idea because you could have water perched on top of the soil, da-da-da-da-da. What we're suggesting to you is that you will put the membrane liner in, you will cover it with your 1 foot of sand, and then come back and put corn stalks over that slope. And the corn stalks will stay. You'll just leave them there. They'll decay and rot over time. They will allow liquid to move through them, but they will give you an insulation blanket for protecting the soil underneath that liner for desiccation. Yes, you're going to use up some space, but at least it's something that's there. And you get the sand, the contractor will have to put the sand up, and it'll be there. And the corn stalks will also protect from water, washing the sand down the slope. You'll have, on the top, we'll have a little berm all the way along the top so the water can't come over that slope, run down the slope. But, the corn stalks from just rain falling on it and stuff will protect it from trying to wash away. Your very bottom slope, then, you know, the first 8 feet, what we would suggest over that next year, that you try to get an 8-foot lift of garbage up all along that 250 foot. Okay? So that you have the bottom portion of it protected with garbage on top of that corn stalks. The rest of it that's exposed for the next year, you'll just add some more corn stalks over top of it. Just keep, you know, a cover on there. DNR, it is not yard waste. So basically you're putting a material there to protect the slope, to keep it from desiccating. It's not something that's prohibited from you to put into the landfill. All it is basically a material that you use to protect your slope, and you'll leave it in place and it'll decay over time.
3-to-1 slope, you're going to put a foot of sand on that?
It's a 3-to-1 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sand will hold?
Yes, good point. That whole slope is being, the liner is a textured liner. It's got a texture, roughness to it and stuff, so that you can hold the sand on the slope.
Well, you know, you're looking at for, you know,
last time we put sand on there, it washed off.
Yeah, because your sand was exposed.
And by putting corn stalks on it, you didn't get a wash.
It, you know, basically, as long as you keep a decent layer of stock over it and stuff, should be able to hold it in place.
In 3 years, you said the cell life, we're going to be clear of the top of the liner in 3 years? All that line, or
up to that bench elevation, you won't be, you know, you'll be up to this elevation.
Put your pen on the bench. Where's the bench elevation?
Right here.
And what's that, is that higher than the old road or lower than the old road?
No, that's the old road.
Okay, I got a visual now.
Yeah, when you drive along it, and you're at the toe of the vertical expansion.
You can see where we're at up there now, so in 3 years we'll be up to the old road.
Right.
How much more is it, Ivan, if they would come and just weld it on as they needed it?
Well, not only is it the mobilization of the crew to come back and do that, but you have to then go through all the testing criteria, and we have to recertify each time you do that. So basically, the cost, not just for the contractor to mobilize, plus he's mobilized for a small amount of material that he's going to place. And the other part of the problem is you have to anchor. So if we only put liner up 10 feet, okay, well, you still got to anchor that somehow to keep it there. Now you got to come back and have to weld on to that piece below. So you're going to have to leave yourself some kind of a flap so that you don't have to redig that anchor out, and leave a flap handle there so that you can weld on and go up. But now you're going to have to cut another trench across that slope to anchor it again. So going piecemeal up that slope is what we try to get across the DNR. Does not make any sense. It is not feasible. There's all kinds of landfills, you know, in the state of Iowa. The ones that have been using the liners, they were doing that, you know, their side slopes or whatever, they would, you know, put the liner all the way up it. And they weren't covering them. We knew there was desiccation that was happening. DNR never hopped on the bandwagon until this past year, basically start raising cow about the fact that those slopes are exposed. Well, everybody's saying, well, yeah, what do you expect? And they had a big meeting down there. ISASA organization had a meeting with DNR trying to get some basically acceptance of the fact that we may have some desiccation there. Okay? Well, even if the slope is protected, we know that a black liner on clay up a slope, that the heat will dry the clay out underneath, and that clay will desiccate from drying out. So the freezing action is only one aspect. They don't give a crap about the dry out from the summer months. And, you know, it's just it's one of those inherited problems that are there on the side slope.